Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of Mtambo podcast. My name is Jakub Mtambo, and today I have the pleasure of talking again to Jakub Simek, a co-founder of Se2 and an author of Wisdom Enterprising. With Jakub, we'll discuss the fascinating intersection of the Great Resignation, automation, and the power of AI. Jakub, welcome again to Mtambo podcast.
Duke, good to see you. I'm happy that we are doing this recording together of Daily Balajisms, the second season.
Thank you for always showing to Mtambo podcast. Now, in a recent article, you wrote about the Great Resignation and its potential to lead to great automation. Could you please expand on the idea for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, currently, it might be the causes for great automation might be varied, and not just the Great Resignation. It's more like a remnant of the COVID era, where people were like buying stocks, like the meme stocks on, I don't know, using Robinhood or Revolut, and like cashing out their so-called STEMI checks in the West, in some countries like the US, they during COVID, people had like many people went remote, started to work remotely. They got some like government subsidies because of COVID, and they were kind of like many people like resigned or didn't return to work, or they were like able to find different types of jobs, and especially because of the uncertainty of lockdowns, many people left service jobs. So like today you have like underemployment and many jobs are unfilled in the service sector. So there was the Great Resignation, and like the thesis is that it will lead to great automation. That was kind of like the COVID kind of thesis or thinking of Balaji. Currently, we could also maybe say that this new financial crisis, or what Balaji calls fiat crisis 2.0, usually this kind of crisis lead to big changes. And so if there is some progress in automation, people will, I mean, not just people, I mean, companies will try to cut costs. And so the robotics can replace people who are missing due to, let's say, demographics, like the too many old people compared to young people in the West, but it can also replace workers in case of some kind of like a serious economic downturn.
That's fascinating, Jakub. It seems like that the Great Resignation has inadvertently became catalyst for technological progress. Now, you mentioned in your article that AI has the potential to boost egalitarian qubits in size while also shrinking high-performing sovereign collectives. Can you elaborate on that point, please?
Yeah, it's like kind of like an intro to this article. So the kibbutzes, it's like a kind of it's like some kind of communitarian projects in Israel, where usually around agriculture, but not necessary. There are also some kind of high-tech kibbutzes, and also like high-tech agriculture. Agricultural ones, and these are kind of like egalitarian communities, like people are sharing equally, and they're like small size, like I don't know, 500 people maximum, if I remember correctly, some 400 people, something like that. And so the idea here is that I mean, communism doesn't work. That's like one of the few lessons of that can be said of economics and so-called like macroeconomics, because it's like very difficult to run scientific experiments in macroeconomics, or something that is resembling scientific experiments, meaning like because you can't run like some kind of counterfactual or see the counterfactual, like what would happen if the country, let's say, didn't adopt certain political or economic ideology. And there's few exceptions, like if you look at, I don't know, Western Germany and Eastern Germany, you know, before the Berlin Wall fell, and you can see like, okay, you have the same population, you split it, and you see one is running certain ideology and becomes poorer, and kind of also the culture changes, and it's like the culture is it feeds on economics, and economics is changing the culture. So it's like and you see that it was like the homogeneous population, and it becomes poorer, you know, over time because of communism. So like, okay, communism doesn't work, let's say also with South Korea and North Korea. You can see something similar, you know, like North Koreans are often starving, South Koreans don't. And of course, then you can have some more intriguing cases, like with China, let's say, kind of swapping the back end. So they kept the communist logos, I mean the branding, but they swapped the back end, as Balaji says. Like, so they got inspired by Lee Kuan Yew and the Singapore story. So the story of from the third world to first. So that's like also the name of the book by Lee Kuan Yew. And so, yeah, I mean, okay, so the communism doesn't work in a large scale, but like as let's say Nassim Taleb explains kind of nicely, that various politics and political ideologies are scale dependent, so they are not scale free. Scale free means fractal. So if you see like all these like nice kind of looking fractals, for example, like a cauliflower is also like a fractal. You know, if you take a part of the cauliflower, like a certain type of cauliflower, it looks like the whole cauliflower. You know, it's like it's like you zoom in, and it looks the same. Therefore, it's like fractal or scale free. And an interesting thing is actually that Africans invented fractals like some 400 years sooner than Europeans. You know, like some African settlements, they resemble fractals. You know, like you have few houses in some kind of setting. And if you zoom out or zoom in, it kind of the settlement looks the same. You know, it's like so the fractals. So it also means scale free, meaning it's easy to scale. And political ideologies are not fractal or not scale free, says Taleb, meaning like you can have communism that is working perfectly fine, but within on the scale of a family. You know, like you don't keep some kind of like double entry accounting in family, like I gave you 2 apples and you owe me 1, you should invoice, you should pay my invoice, you know, in the family. So it's kind of like everybody gets according to his needs, and everybody tries to contribute according to his or her abilities in the family. And it goes even to the extended family, you know, like in the West before industrialization, we I don't know, Slovakia wasn't part of the West, but it doesn't matter. We know we used to have like 3 generational families or big large families. In the Southern Europe, you still have some kind of like big larger families, or more like a family oriented culture. So but if you take like some kind of like a band level, or what you call clan as well, you know, so you maybe communism can work in these kind of like smaller scales and smaller units. And now the thesis of Balaji here is that technology actually can increase the viability of elite communities, let's say like high performing teams. It can shrink the size of high performing teams. We can see it currently with AI startups, right? So you can have like 2 or 3 people starting an AI startup, and before you would have to have like, I don't know, 10 or 20 people, like there is this like famous case of Instagram is beating Kodak, so it's like 12 people or 14 people are have won over 14,000 people. It's just like, okay, they were maybe probably not directly competing, but you get the point that like a very small scale. I don't know, WhatsApp also had like a couple dozen people when it was sold like for billions. Back then it was like a really huge number. And so AI can shrink this even like 10x. So instead of 30 people, you get 3 people. And it's kind of, it's like you can observe it. So you have now like smaller teams, and therefore also AI startups in the current environment, like the VC funding dried out, and the Silicon Valley is kind of just basically the recession there is quite severe, and it's also kind of just starting. It's very sad, but like these AI startups are an exception, and there if you have like just 3 people teams, you also require much less money, much less capital investments. So this is on the kind of elite performing side. So you get like elite teams, like let's say it's something like sports teams, but in the area or arena of startups, and they are shrinking thanks to technology. But you can actually go the opposite direction. This is just like kind of this is not directly Balaji's idea, but it's kind of it's resulting from it. He has a bit related idea and a chapter in his book called China may be able to make a pencil. It's titled similarly. I'm not sure if I got the chapter title right, but it's a story like kind of related to a story in economics, kind of like a libertarian idea about like how it's actually very difficult to produce even the simplest thing like a pencil. You have whole supply chains going into it. So Balaji has this idea, and I will elaborate it later, how AI can actually make like central planning much more efficient, like in China. But a related idea, but connected to egalitarianism, is like these kibbutzes. Let's say they have like in Israel these kind of egalitarian communities. They are also sharing kind of sharing in a more equal manner. Okay, you can say like these elite teams are more like libertarians or right-wing kind of ideology, and these like egalitarian teams are like more left-wing. And the thesis here is that AI can actually, or robotics more generally, can also make these more egalitarian teams larger, so like robotics can support larger populations, they can make like efficient, let's say the agriculture much more efficient, like I don't know, with vertical farming, hydroponic farming, I don't know, battery, solar, many other technologies like getting water, I don't know, from air using solar energy, things like that. That may sound like sci-fi, but basically, in theory, at least that's the hypothesis. You can support like larger egalitarian communities, like with technology and with robotics. So if you choose to. Yeah. So that's like the therefore, like when you asked about kibbutzes and also elite performing teams, so elite teams can shrink, and the opposite, like the egalitarian teams can or egalitarian communities can expand thanks to robotics and AI.
It's remarkable to think about the transformative power of AI and automation in reshaping the dynamics of communities and business. Now you also touched upon the rise of AI, drones, and virtual reality, which the authors of The Sovereign Individual did not participate in their 1999 predictions. How do these technologies influence the notion of a sovereign individual?
Right. So, like the sovereign individual, I haven't read the book. I read just like parts of it, and it's a book from 1999, I think. Yeah, that kind of yeah. Oh, you also mentioned it, right? But that influenced lots of people, like Peter Thiel and also Balaji. It's kind of like, I don't know, libertarian Bible, and it's quite fascinating because it's like the I don't know the like when they were writing it, like the US was the sole hyperpower, like the French called it like hyperpower. It wasn't like just superpower, but it was like totally dominant. Mm. And but they could the authors, the British authors, if I'm correct, they could see like past the nation state into the future. Like they predicted something like Bitcoin, they predicted digital currencies, and they basically predicted someone like Elon Musk. And actually, okay, our friend Alexander Bard, he wrote a book just like 1 year or later, or yeah, I think it was 2000, called The Netocrats. So basically, talking about similar people. Let me check the year, but it was something like early 2000s, right? Maybe even 2000, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And he kind of predicted people like the founders of Google, but now if you take Elon Musk, you if you want to see like who is sovereign individual, you just take Elon Musk and how he was greeted recently in China. It was like uh, and it's kind of related also to another like article, another Balajism, which is like the you have the NYT versus BTC versus CCP,
Yeah.
and you can actually, yeah, it's easier to think in like kind of three kind of like triads, or like trilemmas, or something like 3 points, right? So you have like the NYT is like soft power, CCP is like hard power, meaning like they can do really good infrastructure. I mean, they can do infra really, really fast and really well. Soft power, it's like persuasion, like the mass media, like the NYT is like kind of like upstream of other news outlets. Balaji calls them downstream media, and BTC is like the new, like the crypto capital. You can also call these like woke capital, the NYT crypto capital, and BTC is like the flag of technology and also the flag of crypto.
Yeah.
And then you get like CCP, and they're quite heavy on AI. Yeah, I mean, it's very simplified, but if you think about someone like like Elon Musk, yeah, okay, you can also just like just to elaborate just like 1 second more. You can also think about like social, like the social technology, like social networks, and NYT. Okay, they're at least like recently they were still like kind of upstream of social, like if NYT could kind of like fire people like the Uber CEO for, I don't know, just misbehaving or trying to go against legacy media, but not vice versa, so the NYT can fire a sitting president. And it's like stochastic. Soft power is stochastic, but hard power is deterministic. So stochastic means like it's probabilistic. So it's like one article will not get you fired, but if you get like 10 articles from like, I don't know, Washington Post, New York Times, The Economist, Financial Times, I don't know, and all are kind of like going against, let's say, some kind of bureaucrat, some, let's say, someone FDA, if they went like, and they ran like tens of dozens of articles about like this one person and some big scandal at the agency, probably that person would either get fired, or his career would take a big hit, and not vice versa. Usually, like usually it's maybe in China you can fire journalists, but in democracies it's usually the other way around. Journalists can get you fired, but not vice versa. So
Hmm.
right, so social is like the NYT, at least, like it's again oversimplified, but it was kind of upstream of let's say Zuckerberg. They can criticize Zuckerberg, but not vice versa. Now it's changing, right? But it was like that. And so you have AI and let's say CCP. You can like map it on it. Like they're quite heavy on robotics. Like they have these like drones, which are quite good. Like first class drones. Now I forgot the name of the. It's like 3 letters. CJ something CJI, I don't know. It's like these drones are quite good. What I heard, and Balaji talks about it as well, but I haven't checked into the company. But if you take EVs, like they can produce like really nice electric cars, like EVs, and you can also think about EVs like kind of big robots, like especially if they are like autonomous driving, they're electrical. There's a lot of computation going on there. And if you and now if you take crypto and crypto capital, I mean it's obvious. It's like so these 3 technologies like AI, social, and crypto, and again like woke capital, crypto capital, and communist capital. And now going back to sovereign individual, so you have someone like Elon Musk, and he's quite good at social because he bought Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also good at he's like good at memes and like all this Dogecoin and Bitcoin here and there. And he's also good at AI, he's running like I mean a lot of companies. He has his own robotics company, right? So
yeah, he was founder also of OpenAI,
Yeah. And it's kind of like okay, and you can also think about like kind of like to have like some kind of optimize the strategy, let's say of this triangle like BTC, NYT, and CCP. So in theory, I mean, you could kind of try to get attention of NYT, either being like trolling them, or like I don't know, in ideal case, if they were like technologically progressive, which they are not, definitely not, they would like write nice things about you, like NYT. You can also kind of and you can, but anyhow, you can get attention of them somehow, even just like by trolling them or trolling someone, and they will write about you. And it's also kind of easy to get attention of, let's say, the crypto crowds, like they're quite, we are very happy if someone, I don't know, like if someone from El Salvador, like someone like, Central African Republic, El Salvador, they would be like another, like Palau, Dubai, Singapore, or now Hong Kong, now you read like, Hong Kong is like allowing crypto, and it's like, we are happy, so if there is some, let's say, random country like Slovakia or Slovenia, we have populations, less populations that are smaller than Nairobi, like 5 million or 2 million. And if you get like some kind of small country, like I don't know, being pro crypto, like openly pro crypto, like the whole world kind of notices, people start writing about them. Let's say NYT would criticize them, but like the Bitcoin crowd would get like really excited and like write tons of tweets. Okay, but my point is like, but it's kind of difficult to get the attention of the hard power, like here the CCP, it's like you would, because it's like talking is not enough, like, or just like, they might not be so much impressed by you, it's like, okay, if you troll them, probably they would get angry and they would like, I don't know, criticize you or something. But like there are not so many people who get the attention of the hard power, like the Chinese. And you need to really out execute them, let's say, in hard power, in like robotics, in technology and engineering, meaning like Elon Musk actually he managed to get the local regulations and laws in Shanghai augmented or changed in his favor. Because like normally the legacy automakers in China, they need to form joint ventures with Chinese companies. And if my understanding is correct, and if I remember correctly, he managed to get some kind of exception, or somehow, or maybe there were some other rules. But what I read, he managed to change rules in China in his favor, to build a gigafactory there. And now he's like considering to build another gigafactory for like the Tesla or another car factory for Tesla 2. Model 2. And and he gets like this red carpet treatment in China, meeting various ministers. It's just like totally opposite from the US, where the legacy press, the legacy media, or what Balaji calls downstream media, they totally hate Elon, and they're like I don't know, they just imagine they try to paint him in the worst kind of picture possible, the worst picture possible, and it's like every day some kind of really like nasty attack, and like kind of insincere attack, just like every other day. And that's the guy who managed to get Ukraine online, after Russians destroyed their telecommunication network, and he managed to get Ukraine online in 2 days. He delivered in few hours actually, but he managed to get his Starlink technology to Ukraine in 2 days. Okay, there were some state actors that helped in these logistics and deliveries. I'm sure he didn't do it alone, but like just the idea that the Ukrainians are using his products to get online and to get their message out, to tweet about all these atrocities and to actually communicate between each other. So he's like vital for their security and for their survival as a country. But anyhow, like nobody gives him a praise, it's like maybe they can say nobody in the Western media, maybe they say like, oh, it's Elon Musk is controversial, but he's beloved by the Ukrainians. They will never give him a break, never ever. And compare it to the Chinese, how they are crazy about him. So it's really interesting, and it's also it's kind of interesting that he is like the remnant of the old days, like prior to 2008, the financial crisis, and before that you get like this globalization period where actually China and the US, there was this concept of Chimerica, like China and America together. So now the Elon Musk, he said like America and China, they're like conjoined twins, so they should like work together and they shouldn't go into war and stuff like that. So it's like really interesting. But all these, okay, I'm talking too much about Elon Musk, but this is all just to illustrate that he is the sovereign individual. He's like the GOAT, the greatest of all times in terms of entrepreneurship. And Balaji talks about him also in these terms, because he has like these companies that actually are quite different, and they're like, I don't know, he has the most valuable private company, SpaceX, and I think it will go public soon. I'm not sure. He bought Twitter, and I don't know. Recently, if you saw this clip, I think the Babylon Bee guys, they're like,
I watched the whole.
I just watched the part, where they give him some kind of like IOU note, like $44 billion.
What's forbidden?
And he says like, well, soon 44 billion won't be that much money.
Probably is also raising another bit signal, outside there,
And Balaji was actually retweeting this part, so it's like, it's funny. But okay, so he's like he's the prototypical sovereign individual, or a netocrat, to use Alexander Bard's language. Yeah, I mean, he has probably much more clout or power than, let's say, Slovakia.
Yeah.
It's like, if he bought Twitter, is like, I don't know, Slovakia is like double that or something like that, or I don't know. I just like,
Yeah.
yeah, something in that range or triple that,
Yeah.
or And
True.
interestingly, like how much money evaporated, let's say, from Silicon Valley Bank is like more than our GDP and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, right. So, okay, you have these kind of exceptional individuals, and there are just few, because even if you take like Bernie Sanders, he talks about the millionaires and billionaires in one sentence, but actually there are like a couple of millionaires in the US. Usually it's because people own a house and the house is in a good location, and so it's like worth, let's say, $1 million.
Yeah.
But there are a couple, lots of millionaires, actually millions of millionaires only in the US. But in the whole world, there are like 3,000 something billionaires. So it's like much more smaller community. And if you take these 3,000 billionaires, people like Elon Musk, I don't know, there may be dozen or less. It's
Yeah.
just like it's a very small world. Okay, but you can call them like sovereign individuals. But now the Balaji correctly says that, okay, there are some kind of things that the authors of sovereign individual couldn't predict, because I mean, of course, nobody's perfect. I mean, their predictions are amazing, like let's say they predicted crypto, but they haven't predicted the drones and VR and like
Autonomous
this progress
robots.
in robotics. Sorry.
Yeah, I say like they didn't predict about autonomous robots.
Mm. Yeah, and this can change the dynamics. So, okay, you have sovereign individual, but you can also have like individual sovereign, like Xi Jinping, like he's like the one guy ruling the whole country. So it's
Yeah.
like the reversal of that. And you can have like the autonomous robot, so, and yeah, and then you also have sovereign collective, so
Yeah.
not just like one person, but let's say something like what happened now in Zuzalu, in Montenegro. You get like people like Vitalik and his crew, like Vitadao guys,
Doing the pop-up city.
yeah, and they made up like a pop-up city or a pop-up network state, if you will, for 2 months. It's like, so people come and they live in some kind of like nice place for 2 months. So and Balaji kind of jokes, you can like 10x this and you will get a permanent network state somewhere. Yeah, but I mean, but it's possible, and actually it's quite aligned to also what Alexander Bart talks about, like with these like Burning Man, and okay, Balaji talks about Building Man. But if you take something that is kind of like you're just living in the moment, let's say for 3 days, being at some music festival, or let's say some workshop, and imagine like having this, but like extending it for a whole year or forever. And maybe Alexander Bard would like disagree, because he would say like actually the temporary quality of this is important. It's like if you are in some kind of bliss for a few minutes, it's amazing, but if it would take like eternity, it would be like turning into a hell. It's an interesting kind of like counter argument. But I mean, but you can imagine something like creating a community of maybe not some kind of music festival, but where people are partying all the time, because probably, yeah, you don't want to be partying all the time. You would become a junkie probably, or something, but yeah, I mean, if you mention something like a Building Man and something like more like family friendly kind of festival, let's say we have one like this called Pohoda. And for example, they don't sell hard alcohol there, just like beers and stuff like that. And they're not
You also,
everybody's drinking and
you
being
also have
drunk,
the
but
wine tasting.
yeah.
Yeah. Is it in normal in December?
Yeah, I think there various cities have various traditions, and I don't know. We were one Yeah, I mean, in
Because I
December
remember
you have,
I was
yeah,
there like
you
in
have Christmas.
2014, and it
The,
was around almost Christmas time. It was
yeah, it
in
was like
December.
Christmas market. You have, yeah,
Yeah.
it's maybe a good example because it takes like 1 month. Yeah, it's like a Christmas market that takes like 1 month, but but you go there like few times and you are done. Yeah, like in the evening with the family and friends. Yeah, but okay, so okay, pop-up network states, sovereign collective, but going back to the autonomous robot. So the autonomous robot can change this equation of like sovereign individual versus, let's say, sovereign country. Like Elon Musk being as powerful as some small country. Yeah, that's like really interesting. But autonomous robots are posing a challenge in like because they can, let's say, make totalitarian countries much more ruthless or efficient. Like, okay, there is this like the long night scenario by John Robb. It's like this digital authoritarianism now, but actually Balaji talks about the digital lockdowns, like being similar to like physical lockdowns from COVID, but now let's say your phone can get locked up, or let's say your crypto to fiat bridges stopped working. Like, I don't know, like you can't buy crypto with your bank card on Coinbase or on Kraken suddenly. I don't know. So it's like these things are happening, but imagine that, like, but 10 times or 100 times more intense. Okay, so these are digital lockdowns, but imagine with robots, they just need to be charged, says Balaji. You just need to charge the robot, and the robot doesn't need vacations, doesn't need some kind of
Resting.
like rest, ideology to run, some kind of motivational speech, and like a very crucial, but this is very crucial for humans, like some kind of ideals, like American dream or Chinese dream. I don't know. Europeans don't have their dream. It's like we are like Prometheus that fell from the skies and didn't die. So we're just like walking around and vacationing. It's like a retirement park, like an amusement park here. Or some kind of like a vacation center, vacation, I don't know what. Yeah, a home for retirees. So yeah, but like usually you need some kind of dream, and let's say also what we discussed before, like the orange coin is the new blue jeans.
Yeah.
So Balaji explains how in the Soviet Union, actually the soldiers that were kind of going after these like protesters and like demonstrate during these like demonstrations, there were like this attempted coup at the end of Soviet Union in the 90s, early 90s, when the Soviet Union was crumbling. But the soldiers didn't actually shoot. They didn't shoot because, as Balaji says, like they had rock and roll and blue jeans. They had this kind of dream in their minds, like we actually want this like prosperity and freedom. We want to become like Western, let's say, like the US or Western Europe. We want to be free to travel. We want to have nice things like luxury cars, I don't know, Mercedes, BMW, and actually Jeeps, like these old Jeep Wranglers. I mean, now they're old, but back then they were like shiny and something. They were like a status symbol of their local mafia later on, like yeah, and these like luxury cars, they're still big, I don't know, in these countries and also in Russia. So it's interesting, but they wanted all this prosperity, blue jeans, and these ideals of freedom, traveling, luxury. And so they didn't shoot because they just had enough of this like old regime. And so, but now imagine robots, they don't need to have these ideals, they just have like instructions
Yeah.
and or yeah, some kind of objective, and they go after it. And so this is the kind of one of the counter theses or kind of blind spots of sovereign individual. So like, yeah, robotics over demographics here. It's kind of, but this is like more like a darker scenario. And the sovereign collective we discussed as well. Yeah, like.
Yeah, indeed, the world is witnessing a complex interplay between individual sovereignty and the emergence of new power dynamics. But Balaji also spoken about the concept of a lifeboat in places like Venezuela or Lebanon, where bankrupt states struggle to enforce order. It suggests that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin provide a means to escape that tyranny. Would you shed some light on this perspective?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, so Bitcoin or like some stable coins, like in places like Lebanon, it's like where you can get your money out, like they're stuck in banks, and it's just like something like in Cyprus, you had these like bail-ins. I mean, it wasn't such a like severe crisis like in Lebanon or in Venezuela. But instead of a bailout, you get a bail-in, meaning like you as a depositor, you need to chip in to save your bank, especially, okay, it was like normal people, like your bank deposits are protected. Different countries have different levels. Like the EU has like one I think it's 1,000 euros. Oh, sorry, 100,000 euros. Like so, but the amount about that was like a halved. So imagine everything what you had above it, and especially if you are like a company. I'm not sure if it was like for individuals or companies, but let's say they took almost like half of your money, like the bank, because the banks failed, and yeah, they needed this bail-in by the depositors. But in places like Venezuela or Lebanon is like the next level. It's like or what I heard also Nigeria like had something recently, like something like people went to there were some exchanges of some notes, bank notes, and people didn't get the new ones, or there was something like they put it in the bank and then they're waiting for something. I'm not sure if I got it correctly, but a friend of mine who was in Nigeria recently told me like they also have this like economic situation there. Okay, but in Venezuela, Lebanon, it was quite like the inflation there went like the next level, and it was yeah. And in this situation, like I don't know, in Venezuela, people were mining Bitcoin just to get by. In Lebanon, they're using stable coins to pay, like in shops. And there are articles about it, like in Reuters and Bloomberg, that I post quite often. I mean, there are more, but like these two, like I like. And so, okay, so this is like another kind of yeah, this is like another context, like currently this was possible because this like AI automation and robotics is not so developed, so let's say people, let's say police or military, police, they are kind of, you need to pay police, right, to work here, right? I mean, also Balaji talks about like how actually police are often like quite brave, they work for some kind of recognition and status and some kind of like loyalty to their country because their pay is actually not that high in many places, but still you have to pay them. So, and when the country goes bankrupt, let's say like Venezuela or Lebanon, you get like the system gets weaker, and there are all these niches opening, let's say, also in a negative sense, let's say for organized crime, but also in a positive sense for some experimentation. Let's say people are using some alternative currencies, right, like Bitcoin or some stable coins. But in some kind of like sci-fi scenario where the AI and robotics is much more developed, you can get like this long night scenario of digital totalitarianism or digital authoritarianism, where actually the robots can police you much better, which is which can be more negative for crypto. So that's like the connection. I was also kind of thinking like, okay, why did I mention Lebanon and Venezuela there? But actually, Balaji talks uses these examples actually, that people are able to use crypto in these places because actually the policing gets weaker. But this might not be the case in the future if the robotics is like much more enhanced, and the AI control is much more enhanced. Like, I don't know, like with social media, what we see now, like all the Twitter files and everything, it's just something like, it's just the beginning. It can get much more much worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance indeed, because the rise of AI surveillance and drones present both opportunity and risk for individuals seeking freedom and autonomy. But well, as we near or as we come up to the end of this podcast, maybe you mentioned also in your article that automation and AI can lead to greater centralization, potentially resulting in doom scenarios like the long night, you said. Can you elaborate on these scenarios, on their implications?
Right. So, okay, like crypto, like if unchecked, if it's just like about the sovereign individual, but let's say, yeah, I mean, if it's like just like let's say Bitcoin maximalism unchecked, it can produce something like a bit like a Mad Max world, like. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't want to blame it on, I don't know, libertarians or Bitcoiners or something, but it's just like it's kind of like a crypto anarchy, which is fine. As we had Uri Bednar actually recently, we discussed with him, and his idea is like, okay, crypto anarchy is not for everyone, because you have like people who are invested in the state and in the system. Let's say you have some elder people who worked for their whole life, and they want to get their pensions, and they rely on state, let's say, for healthcare. And these like crypto anarchists like him, like they're not against that. They just say like they want to do their own stuff. They want to just like leave us alone, and we want to create our parallel societies, parallel economies. I don't know, our crypto, I don't know, sandboxes and some kind of like innovation zones or special innovation zones, and leave us alone. So, but in this like scenario of, let's say, like Bitcoin maximalism, unchecked, and if the whole world kind of falls apart, let's say because of some huge financial crisis, so you would get like just this kind of more like a bit like a Mad Max world, like in Venezuela, right? So there's like one scenario. If you take this triangle of like crypto, social, and AI, like these three dominant technologies of today, if you take Bitcoin maximalism to the extreme, you get like the Mad Max world. And then like alternatively, you can take social as the technology, and like the NYT, kind of like the just the brand of this triangle. And if this is unchecked, you can get to something that what I call is like the nuclear holocaust times, like sci-fi scenario, where it's like, now this is not Bitcoin maximalism, which is like can be dangerous when unchecked, but like but this is like Twitter maximalism. So it's actually not about like some kind of ideology, but it's about like getting as much status in a zero-sum world, like where you have like a global leaderboard where everybody is like competing for status, and you want to like also like wokeism or woke capital is like about redistribution of status between groups, but actually it's not about like there are no team dashboards. It's all about like individuals, and just like the Bitcoin maximalists are like super individualistic often, not always, but often. Mm, the wokes are also quite individualistic. They are actually competing between each other. They are not that strong at crowdfunding together or like doing stuff together. They just like kind of try to shout beyond each other and past each other. So, but in this kind of doom scenario, you get something that I call nuclear holocaust times, because it's basically just you get some kind of news like some rocket hits Poland actually, and you don't know if it's from Russia or if it's like just by mistake from Ukraine, and you get some people on Twitter just like, no, we should attack Russia. Like, what are you, some kind of coward? As Balaji also says on some podcast, like, yeah, just like hot war with Russia. Who cares? You are just a coward. You should go for it, like
Yeah,
all in.
yeah,
And you
just
can get,
just the same as the Nord Stream 1. What happened? It
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
almost blamed. Russia was almost blamed, but it says somehow US did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of yeah, people say it's quite likely because is who would benefit. It's probably, yeah. I actually, Russians did some similar stuff, but like with some cables around Norway, like in some Arctics and stuff. It's just like some kind of play. You're just sending a message because you have these redundancies. So let's say there are like two undersea cables, and you cut one just like to show like, okay guys, now you have just like one cable. So
Mm.
and then the other guys are like there is Nord Stream 2, Nord Stream 1, and then there is, I don't know, this like another pipe, so they blew the blew one pipe, so then there is only one, so they like kind of destroying the redundancies. Yeah, it's possible. So then you have just like one, and if that one is destroyed, then it's kind of like game over for that channel. I mean, that distribution type or something. So yeah, it's just a kind of like a brinkmanship, but that's the thing, like in the Cold War you had like this nuclear brinkmanship. So you are also like, you are very careful to do like proxy wars, but not to engage directly.
Yeah,
Because if you engage directly, the idea is it can escalate very quickly. And like in the Second World War, you got like some 50 million people dead. It was like a very bad war.
yeah,
And actually, in this kind of event, like a Second World War, you can, like, like more people can die of a violent death than like many years. Even maybe you can get like one event, like one war, where more people die during that war than in violent fights in the entire history. Just like,
yeah,
because you get big population and the technology is like asymmetric. And imagine now, like, okay, like let's say 90s in some places where yeah, I mean, you maybe not 90s, but you get like actually this, like you had Cold War, and it wasn't a peaceful era, but there was some kind of equilibrium, and then you had like these hyperpower, the US hyperpower, and again, like there were some like regional wars, but they were not these like huge wars like Second World War, and especially after 1945 and after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But like these kind of skills during that Cold War era of this like nuclear brinkmanship, it's kind of it's almost gone. People don't know how to do this, like also like many people don't know how to code like these old machines, or like repair some kind of stuff, or produce some kind of parts of some weaponry. So these are like kind of civilizational skills that are that we are losing as people retire. but okay, just like, but these like nuclear holocaust times is like what I call is, because it's like NYT, you know. It's
Yeah.
and actually holocaust is it's like one art project in Germany. It's like when people go to this like Holocaust museum and they're like taking selfies there, like with smiling, and there is like one artist who documented these people. Like there is like this monument, and they're just like, you know, YOLO, like you live only once, you know,
Once, yeah.
just people being silly around a place where they should be paying respect, and they're just like, you know, taking selfies for us Instagram. And we have one Slovak politician, a lady, she's like a sportswoman, or I don't know how you call it, and she also had this kind of photo, you know, like smiling and
Wow.
kind of like a sexy pose next to the
Wow.
next to the memorial. Is just people are crazy. But okay, so this is like the Holocaust, so the nuclear Holocaust times. But basically, if you get this wrong, like imagine if Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter, and actually there was like they were actually intentionally in algorithms, they were like downplaying Ukraine posts, you know, like before, and probably I don't know why they were doing it, but probably well, it can probably help
Yeah.
help to prevent this scenario. Because if imagine if you get like the more extreme content you produce around Ukraine, like whatever narrative you are pushing, but like I don't know, it's like basically Twitter maximalism. So the more extreme content you produce, and you get like these amazing like likes and retweets, and you are incentivized to like be like even like more reckless towards like I don't know nuclear power, where yeah, they might be like I don't know, really um the perpetrator there, and like it's whatever your opinion is, it doesn't kind of matter, but you still need to kind of observe some kind of diplomacy, or especially if you're a politician, you know. But like politicians on Twitter, they're behaving like teenagers, and like even some like liberals on Twitter, they were behaving like almost like fortune kind of like lunatics, you know, like during this war. So Dominic Cummings is his name. He has this like he had this post about like exactly this topic. And just like summarizing it, basically you get like 50 million people dead in world war, the Second World War, but then you had like much more peaceful era compared to the Second World War, and quite prosperous, at least in the West. But like with something like a nuclear war between superpowers, you know, it's like probably also China would get hit, just because of, you know, it's basically like the whole northern hemisphere would be quite destroyed, and you would get like hundreds of millions of people dead. So which is like 10x, you can get like 10x, like 500 million people dead, like in this kind of event,
Yeah.
which is like really bad doom scenario. And yeah, I mean, we are getting closer to it thanks to this Twitter maximalism. So, okay, so this is the social triangle, the Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin maximalism, the crypto triangle, and the AI. Just going back to your question, is the long night scenario of John Robb, and you can call it the digital lockdown, as Balaji calls it now. Now, digital lockdown, digital authoritarianism or totalitarianism. And it's something like social credit, and like ever present, all seeing kind of like AI, eyes, cameras, CCTVs, and getting your scanning your faces. And let's say you know, somebody who is like doing some protests, like having some banners, and like the AI can just scan those faces connected to phones. I don't know, imagine like you would get automatically like either your phone locked, or you would just like, you know, it's something like you're
Cancel.
jaywalking, you're unpersoned, like you can't buy a train ticket or a flight ticket, or you just like jaywalk across the street, and the camera sees your face, and you automatically pay fine, you know, like you just get notification on your phone like
Your money has been deducted from your bank account, you know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so, but I think this is like you can imagine the doom scenario, going into extreme, and it's like very difficult to escape this long night, as we discussed, because of robotics or AI. It's like cheap to run, and it's like for 24/7. Like, okay, AI, it's like software, but even robots are like they don't have these feelings about like blue jeans or orange coin and their kind of dreams of a better future, but they just like do and execute what they're told to. And so, okay, you can end up like in this long night for, like, let's imagine some dictatorship for hundreds of years or something like that. That's like the doom scenario. And maybe just to conclude on an optimistic note, because it's getting late, yeah, right. So, but also like the opposite of these things, like I don't know, the CCPs, like you must submit, the NYTs, like you must sympathize, and crypto or BTCs, like you must be sovereign. So like too much sovereignty can lead to this Mad Max, too much submission to this like long night, and too much sympathy into like these the nuclear holocaust times, right? But also the opposite is not good. Like if you don't have sympathy, you end up in a like low trust society, like the Russia after the collapse of Soviet Union in the 90s. If you don't submit, you get something like San Francisco, where people are shoplifting. And for $900, they steal 900 something dollars, and almost nothing happens to them. And all these like drug addicts on the streets, like creating havoc and stuff like that. Cars being broken into, and if you are too much sovereign, okay, it's like you. It's like kind of too much individualistic, or there is not enough division of labor, or you go against capitalism. But if you are not sovereign enough, it's just like you end up in this Carl Schwab kind of, living in the pod, eating the bugs, being happy, owning nothing and being happy, which is also not good. So you need some kind of balance. And actually, just to end up on a positive note, you can find this kind of balance. You can have like some kind of like, let's say, special innovation zones, where you have some kind of like regulation sandbox, where you can actually play with the different kind of more egalitarian or elite societies, or let's say parts of the city, where you have like some egalitarian part of the city, you have some elite part of the city, and they can live separately, or they can like go to parties like on a few days, and you can have even something like a social credit system. That's like my idea, not Balaji's, but you could have something like that. If it's like opt-in, and if the exit is easy, the ethics of it, or like what is moral, is to make the exit as easy as possible. But okay, Balaji has related idea of these like computational communities, community resume. You can think about it also something like social credit, but it's like opt-in, and it's so you can. It's all about like optimalism versus maximalism. We had a chat about it as well. So optimalism, about like what is optimal in this, like having some team dashboards, being pro-social, being positive sum, having some community resume, being pro-tech, investing in technology, but like being optimalist. So like just like don't go into extremes in either directions, like. So yeah. So robotics over demographics, but like but demographics is important as well, and people are more than robots in some way, in some other areas, like. Yeah.
That's a crucial reminder, Jakub. And I mean, while automation and AI offer numerous benefits, we must be mindful of the potential for unintended consequences, because I think greater centralization can be a byproduct of these advancements, as powerful entities leverage technology to consolidate their influence. And this can have implications for societal structure and ideologies, potentially scaling them beyond their natural scope. So we must navigate these challenges carefully to avoid dystopian outcomes and ensure a balance between technological progress and preservation of individual liberties. So as we forge ahead into a future driven by automation and AI, we must remain vigilant and safeguard the principles that define our society. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Jakub, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your profound insights on the great resignation, automation, and the power of AI.
Thank you, Dick. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jakub Simek. Please don't forget to subscribe, give this episode a thumbs up, and be sure to come back next week for another episode. Until then, this is Jakub Mtambo, and don't forget to do good always.